and welcome to the F1 in Schools Regional Finals 2021 for the East of England. My name's Mark and I'll be hosting the show alongside my good friend and our master of measurements, Mr. Nelson Vale. Nels, welcome to the studio.
Hello everyone.
Nels, we've got a fun-packed show coming up for the guys today. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to be doing. So first things first, we're going to meet the teams like we would do at a normal regional, of course.
Oh, cool.
They're not here today though, Nelson, but I do have a funny feeling that they're going to be joining us over video. So we're going to say hello and hear from the teams just shortly. We've also got a message of support from one of our many inspirational judges who are working around the country to help assess the team's work in such a challenging year. We've got our expert verdict from our very own studio pundit. We've got our World Finals experienced competitor, or ex-competitor now, who's come back in to have a look at the team's work and give us some of his expert analysis on the teams racing here today in the East of England. And then Nelson, the big one that you've been waiting for.
Racing!
It's the racing, absolutely, yes it is. The award ceremony is going to be coming up after the racing show, so make sure you tune in again for that. But for now, it's just all about the racing in the cars, Nels. If you're sat at home just wondering what all this F1 in School stuff's all about, maybe you're new to the competition this year, maybe you sat watching the show trying to work out what it's all about for next year. Well, here's a little handy video to help you work out what it's all about.
What is F1 in Schools?
F1 in Schools is a global STEM challenge, working with industry partners to provide an exciting and challenging educational experience. A group of 3 to 6 students form a team, think of a name, allocate job roles, and start to design their miniature Formula 1 car of the future. The teams follow a systematic engineering design process to manufacture and race their cars, making sure they comply with a comprehensive set of technical regulations. To do this, they use professional CAD software, like Autodesk Fusion 360, and manufacture their car components using CNC machines. Once the cars are painted and assembled, they take to the track to race. Powered by compressed gas along a 20-metre racetrack, the cars are capable of speeds over 75 km per hour. The racing is fast and exciting, but there is more to the challenge, as it inspires learning not only in STEM subjects, but wider skills including project management, marketing, teamwork, innovation and communication. These wider skills are assessed by judges from education and industry. At competitions, the teams submit their cars and portfolios and also give a project presentation. F1 in Schools operates globally from ages 9 to 19, with teams taking part in school, regional and national level competitions. With the winners progressing at each stage, only the very best make it through to the World Finals. F1 in Schools is a life-changing experience for all involved, with many success stories of competitors who've come through F1 in Schools and have gone on to achieve significant outcomes in their lives. For some, that means working in Formula 1, where the experience of F1 in Schools serves as the ideal grounding for the challenges and demands of elite-level competition.
Great to get a bit of a sense there of the wider picture, Nels, of F1 in Schools. And of course, we know that so much goes on in the projects aside from the racing, and it is amazing to see that the teams have brought so much work to the table this year in such a challenging time.
Correct. I mean, it's been really hard times, not only in the last couple of months, but since the pandemic began. I mean, we had a hard time, but we put the effort to prepare kind of an alternative format for the competition for our students, but that is no match. Our efforts are no match to the effort that the students have put in, sometimes with their school clothes, with their labs closed, with all the possibility of being together. So they had to do all of their work, their presentations, their documents, and even prepare their car under really hard circumstances. But you know what? They did it. They did it. They submitted really fast cars, and look, it's just, they all deserve a massive congratulations and I think a big round of applause.
Yeah, absolutely. From us in the studio here to you all at home, congratulations for making it to the regional finals. Everybody in the East of England and beyond, you deserve that huge round of applause. In fact, it's the least we can do. Yeah, as Nelson said, what a massive effort it is to make it through to the regional finals. Don't think that just because you're here, this is where the competition starts. We know, don't we, Nelson, how much effort has to go into getting the teams to this position. So speaking of the teams, shall we find out who's competing in the East of England? Let's do it. Let's head across and see how they line up on the grid then. So there it is, the East of England. And here they are, Nelson, starting off with the Racing Lions.
Then we have the Sandy Air Racers.
And we got, I love this little football pun here, Real Velocidad.
And we have Black Shuck Racing.
Yeah, interested to see how they get on in the dev class this year. Cosmos.
Now Savitar Racing.
And we've got Apex Racing.
And Infinity Aquarius.
Absolutely, yes we do. A mixture of all the classes of entry, dev and pro class. Nelson, it's great for us to be able to read the team names out, but do you think we should maybe see and hear it from the teams themselves?
Definitely, because my accent sometimes doesn't pronounce correctly their names. Definitely.
Say that about yourself, you've got beautiful Portuguese, but let's hear it from the teams.
We are the Racing Lions!
Hi, we're Real Velocidad.
Hi, we're Team Cosmos from Fusion Academy.
We are Savitar Racing.
I'm Lee.
I'm Freya.
And I'm Frank.
We are Team
Apex.
Apex.
We are Team Infinite Aquarius.
There they are. There we have it indeed, Nelson. There are the teams. Great to see them there in person. You know, sending back a little bit of a video, just say hi. I'm sure they're all watching now and eager to see how they get on track. I mean, Nels, one thing we miss, I guess, you know, seeing the teams face to face is a huge thing that we do miss this year, and I think that element of competition and rivalry is something we also miss our trips around the UK, don't we? You know, seeing places that are, you know, outside our comfort zone and not just here in the north, where of course we live and work.
Yeah, definitely. Spending hours and hours and hours in a lovely white van.
Oh, luxury.
You know, yeah. Just it's lovely, but what it is lovely is to get to know all of these different places. I mean, for me, it's been an experience in the last years. But you know, you always point out to me, oh, look at that place, look at that's special, and even the cuisine. So it's great.
Yeah, and all the while you're teaching me useless Portuguese words, which I'll never use again, like paralelepípedo. And autoringolingoforingologista and all of these words which mean basically nothing. But Nels, just to commemorate the fact that we're in the east of England, I bought you a present. I bought you a little present.
Another one. Well, let me just say, I had cheese before. I had kind of a tomato soup drink. I had iced tea. I had what else?
Well, do you want this present? And then you can add this to your list.
Yes, please.
Well, this present comes with a bit of a precursor, because you remember, and this isn't the present. This is the start to the present. Do you remember your good friend Princess Pepper?
Oh, Pepper!
Princess Pepper's made a reappearance. Nelson, there she is again. She's been hiding down in stores since the 2018 4x4 in Schools National Final. She was waiting so patiently for you, but you never came back for her. But anyway, here she is. Peppa Pig is back. Now, Nelson, did you know that down in the east of England, in a place called Norfolk, which is where we usually head for our regional finals, there is a rather famous factory that every year pumps out novelty advent calendars and novelty, let's not say high quality, but novelty chocolate for Christmas usually, but they also make novelty Peppa Pig chocolate lollipops. So Nelson, I've been really kind to you here. There is a novelty Princess Pepper chocolate lollipop for you, and that is just to remind you of our trips to Norfolk.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You have to eat it though. I mean, that is part of the gig here. You just got to eat the chocolate, and I don't think you're going to look as disgusted as when I gave you the goat's cheese or the iron brew.
It was lovely, the goat cheese.
Yeah, you didn't so much like the iron brew, did you? I think medicinal was your summary of that. Well, Nelson, while Nelson chokes down a novelty chocolate lollipop, it is time to meet our studio expert, because it is none other than the man himself, the one and only Mr. Lawrence Vines joins us in the studio. Lawrence, great to have you. Excited to be here?
Very. I mean, it's the East. We've got a small number of teams, but the quality is really, really high, like I've never seen before.
Yeah, and I know you've been pointing out a few things in the work, and I think we've already discussed a couple of the teams who've got some quite interesting features in their designs. I know you're going to be talking a little bit later on about some of the work the teams have done, but I mean, just for people at home who are sat there sort of saying, yeah, Lawrence Vines, it rings a bell, and I know he's famous, but I'm not exactly sure how yet. I mean, Lawrence, what is your backstory in F1 in Schools for people out there?
So I started competing in F1 in Schools in 2017 at the regional finals with the team Centurion Racing. We worked hard for 3 years. We went to the Nationals in Silverstone and then the Nationals in Airbus, where we came third, which was our ticket to the World Finals, where it was a massive surprise to us, and it's a great excitement. We came third, and the whole World Finals experience was unmatchable.
Yeah, we remember, you know, sort of almost like proud surrogate parents there, seeing you guys up on the podium, of course, sharing the podium with another UK team, with Evolve UK down there from London South. I mean, the two of you, you know, well, the four, the six, however many it was, I think it was 7, wasn't it, between you? A team of 3 and a team of 4 stood up on the podium, and you know that experience for us. I think it took about 5 years off our life expectancy. But I mean, what was that like as a competitor? You know, getting off the plane into Abu Dhabi and suddenly realising you were there, you know, on race form, you were there to compete at an F1 circuit in the build-up to a race weekend. Was that pressure something that you dealt with well, or was it mildly terrifying?
Oh, it was completely terrifying because you're up against more teams than you've ever competed against before, and they're also at just a completely different level to ever before. So I have to say it is quite intimidating, but when you speak to them all, they're all really nice because maybe you've messaged some over social media before, so it already feels like you kind of know each other. So no, it's a great experience, and not half as intimidating as it may seem.
Okay, all right, well, good to hear. I mean, Lawrence, I know you've brought your car along as well, which I think we'll probably talk to you about a little bit more detail as the show goes through, but I mean, there it is just for the folks at home. That is Lawrence's, effectively your child, isn't it? This is something you slaved over for hours. But Lawrence, we'll come back to you for that later on, so thank you for that for now, Mr. Vines. Nelson, we're just going to move on next, and first of all, just mention that of course, F1 in Schools, you know, we sat here in the studio and we're the ones talking about it, but it wouldn't be possible without the sort of support and the involvement of a whole load of organisations and individuals around the country that help to kind of add to the team's experience. Last week we caught up with Venetia to find out exactly what goes on in the life of a judge and the regional coordinator for F1 in Schools.
So I'm Venetia Hardiman. I'm the recruitment manager here at Make UK. It changes and varies. So I'm responsible for recruitment of all apprentices that join us, which is throughout the year. So we're an engineering and manufacturing training provider. So we recruit every year for all of the organisations that we work with. Also responsible for working with our apprentices to try and encourage them and motivate them to get involved in other projects. So we work with lots of schools, so I get them inspired and I get them to create videos that we send out to their schools to try and encourage more people into engineering. So my day can be very varied. I judge, it's always the verbal presentation. Really think key is to keep it really interesting, make me want more as a judge, be really interactive, talk about sponsorship because it is key. I want you to talk about how you've worked together, talk about the problems you've had. Some people obviously think they don't want to discuss that, but the more we get to know some of the things you've had to deal with, the challenges, it does make it more interesting obviously for us as judges. Be quirky, but obviously don't forget what you're there for. Do gimmicks because we love them and they stick in our heads, but make sure the gimmicks don't take over all of the hard work that you've done. What I find really inspiring and brilliant during the time we're in at the moment is all the different ways of presenting. Usually they'll stand in front of me in their group and take it in turns to explain, show us the car, whereas now they've had to adapt. So we've got people who are putting together brilliant videos, we've got people who are putting together scripts for us to read, or they read the script to us. We've got people who are using gimmicks, we've got people who are using various animation, so it is so different. And if you haven't got the ability to video and you haven't got the finance to do that, it doesn't matter. We just need to see what you've done, how you've done it in your own unique way. I think it is really fun, really interactive and an amazing opportunity. All I really want to say is make it fun, because it is fun, so have fun. Good luck to everyone. You've got this far, and it is a brilliant opportunity for you to be here.
Oh, great there to see from Venetia. Of course, Venetia's one of our regional coordinators up in actually the West Midlands. So, yeah, great to see Venetia there. A little bit of advice there from one of the verbal presentation judges. So, something to take away there for the teams. Before we head to the racing, Nelson, I know that you're getting eager over there to get racing and get stuck into it. But just before we do that, we are going to be referring to the different classes in F1 in Schools as we move through the racing. So, just for anybody out there still wondering a little bit about what the classes mean and how they differentiate themselves, here's a quick video to help explain it. Formula 1 in Schools is split into 3 classes of entry: entry class, development class and professional class. Think of these as stepping stones, much like Formula 3, Formula 2 and Formula 1.
At regional finals, entry, development and professional class teams compete alongside each other.
They share a few things in common in the competition.
For example, the competition format, which is the same for all classes. They all get the same time on track, with 4 races each.
The judging categories are the same, albeit some of the assessables vary in size. Where they differ, the technical regulations set out for each class.
Entry, development and professional class designed to different rules. Awards categories are slightly different, so teams get the chance to fight for awards in their own class. And progression opportunities to the UK national finals and beyond differ for each class. In entry class, teams are awarded points in 6 areas: scrutineering and aesthetics, design and engineering, a verbal presentation, a research mission to find out what's next in F1 in schools, and the points for racing. A grand total of 480 points are up for grabs in entry class. Development and professional teams are awarded points in 7 areas, encompassing the design process and marketing activities needed to get to F1 in schools. A grand total of 970 points are available for all teams. Entry class is the ideal starting point for F1 in schools for 11 to 14-year-olds for 1 year only. In entry class, teams compete for the chance to be regional champions, for the privilege to be invited to the UK national finals as a special guest. There's no cost to entry, so the only financial challenge to teams is to create their car. This must be manufactured in one of 3 ways. Either handmade using traditional workshop tools and skills from the F1 model block, 3D printed as a solid component part with just moving axles and wheels, or fully CNC machined using a 3D CAD file before being machined on equipment such as a Denford CNC router. Teams must produce a simple 5-page portfolio detailing the design and manufacture process of their car. A 5-minute verbal presentation to wow the judges with their journey as a team, and the option to create a team pit display for their area on race day.
Let's take a closer look at the Dev class then, which is for 11 to 19-year-olds for 1 year only. Here cars are a step up from entry, but still some way short of the Pro class rules.
Development class offers the first opportunity to progress to the World Finals. To get there, the team will need to become a UK national champion by making it through from the regional finals. There's a small charge of £75 to enter. Teams must make 1 CNC manufactured race car, 2 5-page portfolios, engineering drawings, a 5-minute verbal presentation, and a purpose-built marketing pit display.
The professional class represents the highest tier of F1 in schools. Here, competitors from 11 to 19 years can compete for as many years as they wish, with the ultimate goal to arrive at the F1 in schools World Finals. Assessables are much the same as development class, but the Pro class have 2 10-page portfolios to produce.
The top teams from both regional and national finals get the chance to progress for the ultimate dream of competing at the F1 in schools World Finals. Let's take a look at the cars then side by side. In F1 in schools, entry, development and professional class cars share lots in common, but they also differ in some crucial ways. Let's start with weight. Entry class must start at 65 grams minimum, where development class get a small advantage from having a 60 gram minimum. Professional class can create the lightest cars with just a 50 gram minimum weight. In entry class, teams must start with a no-go zone, a minimum volume for the chassis of the vehicle. This comprises of a basic shape that the teams design their aerodynamic structures around in an effort to create a safe but fast race car. Development class teams must use a slightly modified no-go zone, allowing a bit more freedom for design. The professional class must simply include a virtual cargo, a much smaller volume which allows for much more freedom with the aerodynamic surfaces. Both the entry class and the development class use a standard F1 in schools wheel, whereas professional class get to design, test, modify and finesse their own custom wheels using any materials they see fit. Again, the entry and development class share a standard axle, while professional class can choose their own, with many teams choosing to run low friction bearings as well. All teams are powered by an 8-gram compressed air power pack. This, combined with the minimum weights, can lead to average speeds of 40 km an hour in entry class, up to 50 km an hour in the development class, and an eye-watering 75 km an hour in the professional class. Blink and you'll miss them as our teams race down the 20-metre F1 in schools track, but will any team have what it takes to break the 1-second barrier?
Well, there you have it. That is our F1 in schools explainer for the classes. We're going to move through the classes in the racing, so we're going to start with the entry class now, so we're going to move to the dev class and finish with the professional class. So Nelson Vale, the big moment has come where we are about to start the racing. Before we do that, we're going to talk the guys at home through how the racing is going to work, just so they know what to expect. So Nelson, if you'd like to please explain how the cars are going to go on the track.
So the cars race 4 times each, and they race twice in each lane. Then the lowest team number starts in lane 1. There's a lane swap after race 2, and there's no reaction times, only automatic racing. Any breakages are fixed by F1 in Schools judges.
And then crucially, Nels,
it's only the fastest compliant car wins. But wins where? Wins the fastest car award.
yes, so you may see your car go top of the timesheets, and that means that you will be top of the racing, but the fastest car award and the best engineered car award, when we get to our award ceremonies, they're reserved for the fastest compliant car. Nelson, compliant with what?
Performance regulations.
Okay, so those yellow highlighted rules in the technical regulations, the performance regulations, the ones that govern the performance of the car. So they're the things to look out for. But of course, when we go through the racing now, we will be seeing the cars top the times, and at this stage it'll be a bit of an asterisk as to whether those will be fastest car award winners or not. So a bit of jeopardy. We love a bit of jeopardy here at F1 in Schools. Now, I think Lawrence is in position on the tech pad because Nelson, the big moment has arrived where we're going to head over to the track and we're going to meet our teams from the entry class. So Lawrence, I believe you've been swatting up on these first 2 teams. What have you got to tell us about the first 2 cars?
Well, what a pairing to start the racing off for us. We've got 2 very unique designs. On the left we've got the Racing Lions, and they've got this bulbous section on top of the flat body of the car, which encompasses the no-go zone that has to be incorporated in the entry class. Now, this is really smooth, just easing the air past, and then you see how it's tight at the back to make sure there's very little weight behind the car pulling it back. Now, Sandy Air racers don't appear to have a rear wing, which will definitely mean that they have a little less drag on track perhaps, because they'll have a little bit less frontal area, which does contribute to that. But I expect there will be a points penalty for that, as a rear wing is a fundamental element of all F1 in Schools cars. Yeah. We see that both cars are a little over the minimum weight for the entry class of 65 grams, and I'll just throw to Nelson to explain a bit more about that, as we see that both of these cars are 3D printed.
Right, so a tip for any team that is choosing to 3D print their car body. When you're using a 3D printer, there's several options in terms of how do you want to produce the shape, the solid object. So you can go with full solid and with just as much definition as possible on the layers. So that will generate a 3D printed part that it's probably very, very heavy. Or you can choose to generate the inside bit of the shape kind of in a honeycomb structure and save a lot of weight, because it's still going to be super strong but much lighter.
Yeah, this is called the infill, isn't it, Nels? When you decide whether to fill the inside of the shape, basically a bit you can't see. So the sort of hidden inside of the volume of your shape. So you can get away with that weight saving without having any impact on the final look of the car. Very Lotus, very Colin Chapman for those out there with a bit of F1 history.
Yeah, looking from the outside, the shape would still be exactly the same, but from the inside.
Of course, there is one asterisk here, isn't there? Is that if you decide to go for a lightweight infill, you've got to just be careful that it's not so lightweight that the car becomes fragile and unstable.
Yeah, so it's between a balance of both,
yeah.
But sometimes when we see a 3D printed car going way above the minimum weight for the class, I think that's what's happened.
I think you're right, Nelson. I mean, just to pick out a couple of cars here, I mean, Nelson, do you want to put your name to a winner here? Do you think you can pick a favourite?
You know me in red, that's my favourite, so go Racing Lion.
Still secretly seething about the fact that Sandy Air Racers dared to send a car without a rear wing, probably weighing on your mind. Lawrence, are you gonna put a vote in there for the Sandy Air Racers, or is your money on?
I am.
Oh, you are?
If I could have done, I'd have found a way to enter a car with no rear wing. So
of course you would.
They have my vote for sheer cheek.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we love a bit of cheek here at F1 in Schools. Right, Nelson, I think we're ready to head out to the track and to see our first race. So, Nels, talk us through it.
Right, race number 1 with Racing Lions in lane 1 and Sandy Air Racers in lane 2.
Away they go.
Cars are off, And we have the Racing Lions taking it with a 1.740 and the Sandy Air Racers with a 1.905.
Yeah, there they are. So Nels, just to point out, we've got a split time for each car. Do you want to just explain quickly to the people at home what the split gate, the sector gate is on the F1 in Schools track?
So the split time is registered by our split gate. So this is a gate that it's kind of halfway down the track. I mean, we can choose the position where to put that split gate, but it's actually measuring which car is racing first until that specific point. But then there's another gate by the end of the track that logs which car arrives first.
Yeah.
So what's happening, it didn't happen on this race, but it's happening throughout our racing shows. Sometimes a car arrives first at the split gate, but doesn't actually win the race.
No, so it's really interesting to keep an eye on this as to whether your car actually makes it to the split gate first and then whether it finishes first. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more. I think, Lawrence, you're going to explain, not right now, but as we go through the show, a little bit more detail about the different phases of the racing, because obviously lots of different things are going on down the track at these stages. So it'll be interesting to keep our eyes on that if we get some genuine overtakes in F1 in Schools. Right, Nelson Vale, we're ready to head back to the track and see race number 2.
Race number 2, still with the teams in the same lanes. Racing Lions in lane 1, Sandy Air Racers in lane 2, and we're just waiting for the lights, and they're off. So we have the Racing Lions taking it with a 1.748.
Yeah, there we have it. Relatively consistent times there. I mean, Lawrence, do we normally see F1 in Schools cars being just completely consistent across the racing, or can we maybe prepare to see some of the cars speed up and some of the cars slow down over the course of 4 races?
I have to say there are lots of things that can affect the cars across the races. Obviously, the cars are going very fast, so those wheels rotating on the axles, they can just maybe enlarge on those holes slightly and just free themselves up, so that could give you a bit of extra speed. But equally, you spend this 20 metres roaring down the track in hopefully less than 20 minutes, and then you decelerate in a space of only a metre, so your car undertakes a lot of force, which can just knock an angle off, maybe make your wheel alignment not so perfect anymore, just causing that bit of resistance that'll slow you up a little.
Yeah, so we're looking for the car's consistency really, and it could depend on, you know, as you suggest, maybe the way that the cars are built and the engineering that's gone into them as to how well they stand up with the impact at the end of the track. Really good point. I mean, for people at home sat here for the first time watching an F1 in Schools event, you know, these cars, yes, they're designed to go flat out for 20 metres. But then they've got to stop within the space of less than a single metre. So I mean, they're not just doing this once, are they, Lawrence? They're in many ways they're not just F1 cars.
No, they're also endurance cars, because they actually today will race 4 times, but at a World Finals could race up to 20 times. And we know from the point scoring that you don't get your points just for that first time. The points are actually scored based on an average of all of your race times. So it is important that your car endures and completes all of its races.
Yeah, Lawrence, your assessment is correct, and that is spot on. Nelson, I think we're ready for the track guys. Yeah, I think they've given me the thumbs up. Of course, the cars have now been swapped over onto different lanes, and they're now going to race for races 3 and 4. So, Nelson, over to you.
So this is now race number 3, with, as you can see, with the Sandy Air Racers in lane 1 and the Racing Lions in lane 2. And there we have it with the Racing Lions with a 1.759 and Sandy Air Racers with a 2.007. Oh, 007 there.
007, love a bit of that. I mean, I think the Sandy Air Racers car is getting a little bit quicker, so perhaps that's just starting to warm up, starting to ease up a little bit. Maybe the wheels were just quite tight to begin with, but starting to find their rhythm. Nelson, I think the track guys have done their miraculously quick job again of returning the cars to the start, replacing the CO2 cartridge with a fresh one from the refrigerator, of course kept at a standard control temperature of 21 degrees C, I think you'll find, and are now ready to go again for race number 4. So Nelson, over to you.
Race number 4 and final race for this pair, and let's see the outcome. And we have
closer.
The Racing Lions with a 1.840 and a 2.079 for Sandy Air Races.
Yeah, I think we just saw the Sandy Air Racers car just catching up towards the end there. I think what actually happened is Sandy were completely consistent throughout the races, that the Racing Lions car just starting to slow up a bit actually towards the end there. So Sandy Air Racers, great job on consistency, and obviously the Racing Lions, I mean, as Lawrence pointed out, that bulbous design to sort of smoothly spread the air out down the car, obviously working and paying dividends for you there. Right, we're going to move on then, and Lawrence, we're going to talk to you a little bit about this later on, but one of the areas of F1 in schools that we don't tend to see much and don't tend to sort of show publicly are the verbal presentations. I mean, the teams put in huge amounts of work to perform for the judges. So here for you at home, just a little quick explainer as to exactly how the verbals are judged.
Quite often the most daunting area of the assessment, teams produce a verbal presentation to deliver to a panel of judges. Here they're graded on technique, composition and subject for a total of 180 points. The judges are looking for strong visuals, contribution from all team members, the team's ability to capture the room with dynamism and energy, and engagement with those listening. Judges are looking for how well the team clarifies the concept and how well their presentation sticks to the time allowed. For subject, they're graded on innovation, collaboration and the learning experiences that they've gained from F1 in schools. The verbal presentation is a multimedia content production. For regional finals it's 5 minutes, and for national finals a 10-minute presentation. Judging a verbal presentation takes a trained ear and a skilled communicator. Our professional judges represent companies from across industry, where quite often communicating an idea is the key to success.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nelson, I think, did we spot the back of a familiar head there in one of those scenes? I think it might have been your handsome Portuguese head there. Nelson, I'm going to take you back a few years because, as we saw in that little clip there, you used to be a verbal presentation judge, didn't you?
Well, it's been quite a few years. That was 2014 in Abu Dhabi. And that was the verbal presentations where it was my pleasure to be a judge at the time. And that was, the image just really took me back because that was one of the best verbal presentations I've ever seen. A team that was just telling their story in a very engaging way, full of energy. And you know what? That's what we want the verbal presentations to be. I mean, the students are really under pressure for 10 minutes trying to showcase their skills, their communication skills. Some use different ways of doing it. In the basic classes like primary class and entry class, they may sing or tell us the story, but in development and professional class, they are actually showcasing all of their journey from the process of manufacturing their cars to how they got the sponsors, and even a little bit of return of investment to those sponsors. So it's really amazing to see all of their communication and energy, and especially the engagement that they make you feel as part of that verbal presentation.
Yeah, and it's an important point to mention as you make there, that actually the verbal presentation is scored not so much on what the teams say and the content, but it's how they say it, isn't it? It's about the style of presentation and the communication skills.
Yeah, and you know what? Only if we had someone in the room that just kind of won the verbal presentation World Finals Award recently.
Oh God, yeah, that would be incredible, wouldn't it? Oh, Lawrence, you're here. Findsy, I mean, you were there in the heat of the moment. How do you get into the frame of mind? Because obviously it's one thing doing it at a regional finals and then at a national finals, but how do you mentally prepare to walk into a World Finals verbal presentation and not just walk in there, but absolutely nail it? I mean, that must have been terrifying, right?
I have to say, completely terrifying. All of your other project elements, like your car, you develop over a long time and you test and develop. Your portfolios as well, you can write them, finesse them, get feedback on them. But your presentation, you spend all of that time making your slides, trying to make them as impactful as possible, learning your lines, trying to get the content in there and make it as natural as possible. But you only get one shot at delivery. And I have to say, for us at the World Finals, it was the last judging session we had. We'd got everything else in, and then just the verbal presentation to seal the deal.
Wow, what a climax to the competition for you guys. But of course, as Nelson said, you actually walked away with the verbal presentation award at the World Finals.
I have to say, that was astonishing. I think in the awards ceremony, we were still planted to our seats because we couldn't quite believe what we'd heard. As a team, that was definitely one of our weaknesses to start out when we started in the competition 3 years before. But for the World Finals, we tried to make it simple, and it paid off.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, just proof really, Nelson, isn't it, that if you work hard enough at something, it can come good in the end, and on a massive, spectacular scale for Lawrence and Centurion Racing. Well, I think we'll go back to Lawrence with a bit more analysis later on. I think you've got some enterprise input for us later on, Lawrence. But for now, Mr. Vines, we're going to head over to you on the tech pad for our next entry class team, who I think actually are competing against the Ghost team in lane 2. So, Lawrence, what have you got to tell us about this team and how they're going to be racing?
Okay, so there's actually quite a bit of insight we can offer into this one. So we'll notice that the car looks a little different, and that is because it has actually been machined from the F1 in Schools model block. Now, in entry class, you're completely free to manufacture the car out of whichever material you'd like. But of course, Real Velocidad have got some real experience under their belts here, because when they advance to the development and professional classes, that's mandatory. We can see a very nice paint job. They've really mixed it up here. They've got these beautiful, neat stripes, then leading into this kind of mad splatter. So I like it. They've got this nice front wing, smooth curve, send the air over the front wheels, maybe a bit of a fragile rear wing. We'll definitely keep an eye on that when it's racing.
Yeah.
But let's get to the opponent. We have an odd number of teams, so we're actually racing against the Ghost car. Now, what this really means is that the other lane will remain unoccupied. Now, with two cars, you'll expect lots of turbulence, maybe throwing over the lane boundary, and that might affect the car going down the track. Perhaps with the turbulent air hitting the car, the aerodynamics won't quite behave as you'd expect them to. But equally, maybe there's a bit of a slipstream effect, so it could go either way.
Interesting, yeah, cracking bit of analysis, Lawrence. I love the description of the mad splatter as well. I think that sounds fantastic to me, Nelson. I think this team, bit of a sense of humour here, but Real Velocidad, bit of a football pun in the name there, and that mad splatter paint job. Well, Nels, I think it's probably about time how we see how they get on track, don't you? Let's head out there, Nelson, for race number 1.
So we have Real Velocidad in lane 1, about to race. All lights are on and they're off, and there it goes. So the system is just taking a little bit longer to give us the time, because there is no car in lane 2, but the system is actually waiting to check that. So we have a 1.530 for Real Velocidad in our first race.
There it is, and a split time, actually quite a competitive split time, Nelson, less than half a second. You know, we're seeing a lot of teams in the entry and dev class, if they can get to that half a second split time, then it sets them really quite well up for the next phase of the race. I think, Lawrence, you can probably give us a bit more insight in exactly what's just happened there.
And I have to say, we're seeing a bit of a trend here, because this car is 240 millimetres long. That's 3 centimetres longer than the maximum length if you're in the development or professional classes. So while they're not restricted on this in entry, we have seen these cars that are long, where they can stretch those features out so there's a little less resistance and the air can slip over them that bit more easily. We've seen those cars go really quickly, so maybe that's something to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a cracking bit of insight again, Lawrence. I mean, Nelson, I think we're probably ready to head back out onto the track, and if you're ready to call it, let's see race number 2.
Race number 2.
Right, pretty handsome little car, isn't it?
Same lane, lights on, and it's off. So we just need to wait just a few moments more.
I mean, what we are hearing from the track guys is there wasn't any damage in race 1. I think, again, in race 2, it seems fine.
Yeah, it's all good. So with a 1.502, that's Real Velocidad's second race.
Yeah, there it is. Again, pretty consistent. You see in there, no damage from the car. So again, you know, thumbs up for the team for engineering the car so well. I mean, at this point, Nelson, obviously, we've frozen the video there, but the car's being removed back from the track at breakneck speed. And our experienced team of track judges who don't just manage the primary class regional finals, the UK regional finals as we see now, and the national finals. It's the same track team that managed the world finals track as well.
Yeah, pretty busy guys.
Yeah, these guys know what they're doing. So I think just hearing in our ears now that the track is ready to go again for race number 3. So Real Velocidad now swooping over into the second half. And let's see if they can equal or even better their performance out on track.
Right. Race number 3 now with Real Velocidad in lane 2. So all the lights are going to go on, and now they're off. And again, we just need to wait just for a couple more seconds.
Play the waiting game.
We will have the racing time.
Just helps to add a bit of suspense and tension. And here comes the flashing light, which means...
And it's a 1:4.81.
Yeah, that is an impressive little time from Real Velocidad. I mean, that's their quickest time yet so far. So maybe lane 2's just giving them a bit of an advantage. I mean, Lawrence, is this lane 1, lane 2 thing, is it a thing? Are the lanes different speeds, or is it down to a whole load of other factors?
I have to say, Mark, it's difficult to tell, but what I can tell you is that it will always be under debate. When you're at a competition, you're obviously dashing away to do all of your different bits of judging, but when you manage to sneak a glance at the track, maybe you see a few wins on one side and you think, that's the side I want to be on. That's the side where I can get my fastest time. Now, often that's a bit misleading and it's not the case. I know the track team work incredibly hard to make sure the track is perfectly level and aligned in a perfectly straight line. But who knows? That is the reason why we race each car twice in each lane, so there can be no dispute that each team gets their fair chance at setting the best possible time.
I could not have said it better myself, Lawrence. I mean, you've given us the most eloquent answer to the question now of what is the real difference, but come on, you had a favourite in the World Finals, didn't you? Which was your lane in the World Finals?
It's like admitting to being superstitious. You're a little embarrassed about it, but...
Go on!
It was lane 2.
But you have a reason, don't you? You have a reason why. Go on.
Down at the bottom of the track at the World Finals, to the left-hand side, there was a door to the outside, and so we preferred lane 2 because it was that bit further away, and I had this fear that if someone opened the door at the wrong moment, there'd be this massive headwind and our car would go 0.5 of a second slower. It never happened, but
I love the level of detail, the level of analysis, and oh no, there's a door 30 metres down there that might just have an impact. Great to hear that, Lawrence, and lovely to admit that you did indeed have a favourite lane after telling us how much of an absolute myth it really was. Right, Nelson Vale, I'm going to head back to you, Mr. Commentary, for the next race, and it is indeed the final race for Real Velocidad.
Right, final race, Real Velocidad, lane 2, lights are off, car being taken off the deceleration system. That's how carefully it's being done.
Yeah, nice little close-up of the canister being removed.
And there we have it with a 1.436 in our fourth race.
I think that is their best time, isn't it? I think we've just seen them set their fastest time, Real Velocidad. I know you're a big fan of a Veloc-related team name, aren't you, Nels? Special thing for Velocity, Velocitar, Velocidad. Challenge set, really. I mean, how many names can we come up with that start with Veloc? Anyway, we'll leave that one for later on. Next up then, I think it's time to have a look at a leaderboard, Nels, don't you? Let's see where the entry class teams have stacked up. There it is. Well, indeed, with that last time set, Real Velocidad have set the fastest time for the entry class in the east of England. Cool. So there it is, 1.436. I mean, that is an impressive time regardless of class. I think if you were a dev class team, you'd be pretty satisfied with that 1.4. I guess, Lawrence, this comes back to the fact that the car, although it was manufactured to the entry class rules, still took advantage of the model block, the CNC machine capabilities, and perhaps has more in common with a dev class car.
Yes, definitely. So that model block just allows the car to be that little bit lighter, and you can see that starting down the kind of route of the development and professional class, they might have done a bit more like analysis work, so maybe some CFD, or maybe they've had a look at some of the entry and the Devon Pro class cars and just taken a bit of inspiration.
Interesting. Well, we'll find out if you've picked anything out from them later on, but yeah, very interesting. I mean, Lawrence, stay poised there, because I know we're going to come back to you for some information about the enterprise work, because first up, just in case you were wondering a little bit about how the teams, or what the teams do in terms of enterprise sponsorship and marketing, here's a little quick video just to explain how that section is judged.
Enterprise judging forms a central part of a team's point score. Teams produce a portfolio, a team identity and a pit display worth 180 points. The judges are looking for evidence of project management, teamwork, sponsorship and marketing, an F1 in Schools project evaluation and the presentation of a document, all counting towards the portfolio score. Team identity is scored on its own, while the pit display takes 3 categories: marketing, graphic design and actual content. With 3 separate assessments, it's a multimedia judging area. For the portfolio, development class produce a 5-page portfolio, where professional class produce a 10-page portfolio. With teams essentially creating their own businesses, our judges need to have experience of this too, with a wealth of experience coming from across industry, from business owners, entrepreneurs, to marketing and sponsorship specialists.
Oh, well, there we have it. A little bit of an insight into how the teams are assessed. Now, Lawrence, I know you've been taking a closer look at some of the work the teams have done. So what have you picked out from the enterprise work?
So today I was going to show you a few of the pit displays that teams have submitted. So at a physical event, the pit display would be like the hub of the team. It's where they'd congregate, when they weren't being judged. You could go there and ask them questions. They might even have some merchandise for you. But this year they've been asked to design one as if they were going to an event, but not build it and present it to us. So these two teams, Apex Racing and Savitar Racing, I was really impressed by them because they built their pit displays in CAD, that is computer-aided design software, like teams design their cars in. And to be fair, these look like pictures to me. You could be there. So with Apex Racing on the left, we can see they've got these boxes where they can display items. They've got lots of information about their team on the left-hand side. And what I love is their backdrop with these words that the team relates to and kind of reflect the ethos of the team. So we can see some really important things here like teamwork, passion, drive, communication and dedication down there. Really like that. And then we go on to Savitar Racing. They've even rendered it in the background of a display hall, so that's a really cool touch. And this beautiful lighting work, and look, they've got their different development cars there, and yeah, what a great effort from these teams. I'd really like to see them in person, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah, totally agree, Lawrence, and major plaudits to the teams who've done this. I mean, Nels, these CAD designs, these are almost, in some ways, you can do more with a CAD design than you can do in real life. So we're probably seeing teams here, visualising their dream pit display without having to sort of worry about the constraints of manufacturing.
Yeah, and we're now throwing new challenges into the team that is a consideration on sustainability. So teams can look at material, they can mock up the entire pit display in CAD, but then they can start thinking, right, now how can we make this come to life with sustainable materials? Because without sustainability now, and look at Formula One, they are considering sustainability in everything that they do now, so we need to do the same. So our students are already doing it by researching alternative materials to plastic and things that can just help our world.
Yeah, great to hear. I mean, Lawrence, the one thing that sticks out to me in my memory, and I think we actually saw it in one of the videos before, was a little feature that you guys built into your World Finals pit display. I mean, do you want to just take us back to that little clip in the video it was, and tell us what you added to your pit display, which turned into a bit of a crowd pleaser?
Yes, so in the F1 in Schools Explainer video, you may have caught a bit of a pit stop there, a bit like you might see in Formula One. So what we did was we 3D printed a large-scale version of the actual wheel that was on our car. And we printed this great image of the car on the backdrop, so it looked like you were changing the wheels on our car. Now, we did this in collaboration with one of our sponsors as well, so anyone could come and have as many goes as they liked at changing this wheel as quickly as possible, and the fastest time at the end of the competition would win a watch from one of our sponsors. Yeah.
Wow. Why didn't you tell us to come and enter the competition, Lawrence? I mean, I thought it was just a bit of fun, but yeah, there we go now. So I could have had my very own timepiece. Well, I mean, just one example of some of the amazing work that teams do in the pit displays. And Lawrence, thank you so much for your analysis there of some of the Pro Class CAD work and pit displays. Lawrence, stay where you are because I think we've now got our next team up on track, and it's from the development class. Now, Lawrence, I know that this is a team that's definitely piqued your interest. What is it about Blackshuck Racing that's really caught your eye?
Well, this team, you'll notice below their team name on the screen, you see homeschool. This is what I don't quite believe. This is from someone who's been homeschooled, which is, I have to say, insane. When I was competing in F1 in Schools, I don't think I was actually at home. I was just at school. So how they have managed this, I've just been so impressed by all of their materials. So much hard work has gone into them. And their car looks great. They've got it right at the minimum weight too. What an effort. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more with you, Lawrence. I mean, firstly, beautiful car. And I kind of just point out as well, for anybody out there a bit of an F1 fanatic, the Damon Hill Oxford Rowing Club stripes on the helmet there. 11-year-old me had a baseball cap with those on. So yeah, absolutely mega to see the Damon Hill and indeed Graham Hill colours coming back into F1 in schools. Lawrence, I'm sure you've picked something else about this car, but we won't go through it right now. But there is something else that has piqued your interest about the Black Shuck Racing car. I think we'll come back to that later on. But Nelson Vale, if you're ready to commentate on this car, I think we'll see how Black Shuck Racing get on track. So here we are, heading out for race number 1.
So race number 1 with a team in lane 1. All the lights are going to go off, and there we go.
There we go, looks rapid.
So again, just because the track system is just trying to understand if there's anyone finishing on lane number 2.
Just got to be sure.
Taking a little bit more time, but there we have it with a 1-4-0-3 Black Shuck Racing. That's your race number 1.
Yeah, that's race number 1, and that is a good little time actually. I mean, it's comfortably below the 1.5 second mark. They broke the split beam in less than half a second, so it's all signs pointing positive for Black Shuck Racing at the moment. The track team out there are just whistling the car back down the track and extracting one of the fresh CO2 canisters from the refrigeration unit, otherwise known as a fridge, which is set to 21 degrees C, Nelson, just to maintain a constant temperature. Lawrence, just when we talk about this constant temperature thing, what's the reason for that? I mean, why don't we just leave the canisters out in boxes under the track?
Well, the canisters are full of compressed CO2, and as that gas gets hotter, it gets more energized, bouncing off the walls of the container, and that makes the pressure higher, which will mean that the cars go faster. So we keep the cars in this refrigeration unit right at 21 degrees, the kind of standard room temperature, just to try and make it as fair as possible, because otherwise, as racing happened throughout the day, it can't happen instantly. The room temperature will change, and you'll find that at the peak heat of the day, teams are going much faster, and that's a real disadvantage to teams at other times of the day. So to keep it fair, all canisters are kept in the fridge at exactly the same temperature. We try and keep all of the variables as close to identical as it is possible.
Yeah, bang on, Lawrence. Thank you for that little explainer. So Black Shuck Racing then completing their first race. Nelson, it is now time for race number 2, so I'm going to hand over to you again to commentate on the second race.
Right, race number 2. So the car will race in the same lane, looking good. All lights are going to go off. There it goes, into the acceleration system. Apparently, no breakages. That's a really good sign.
Yeah, we're hearing good news from the track team.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything. Oh, and there we have it with a 1.437. So very well done again.
Yeah, just a tiny little bit slower than the first race, but of course we've mentioned it. Lawrence has covered it already. That as the racing develops, maybe just a little bit of wiggle can start to creep into those wheels, the axles, the little axle supports as well. Those little bits of wiggle can create vibrations, I guess, and those vibrations are maybe just holding the car back. But however, Lawrence has got something to add at this point, because I think we might be about to see something happen.
Well, I was just going to say actually, while our track team switches Black Shuck into their alternative lane, I just wanted to comment on their logo, because these guys are clearly F1 aficionados. You commented on the Graham Hill Rowing Club sign on the top of the car, and if you see their logo with the paint stripes on the left of the writing, they've had this inspired by the Benetton F1 logo. So lots of cool little cameos on their car.
Oh, I tell you what, it's like a throwback to the mid-90s F1 scene. I mean, this is my bread and butter. This is what I grew up with. I mean, yeah, great to see. Great spot as well, Lawrence. I did wonder, actually. That looks to me like the old Renault Sport Benetton little coloured stripes, but great spot. And thank you for authenticating that little hunch we had. Nelson, I'm hearing in my ear that the track guys are ready for race number 3, so Black Shuck has been successfully extracted from the track, added to the new lane. The tether line has been inserted successfully through the 2 tether guides. The weight has been added to the end of the track, held delicately over the pulley wheel at the end of the track, suspended on a constant weight. The car's been moved into position, the pod has been aligned successfully, and a fresh, refrigerated 21 degrees C canister has been added to the back of that car. I believe it's ready to go. Lawrence, you've got something to add as well. What on earth else could have happened?
And how heavy is that canister, Mark?
That's a really good question. I think it's been weighed to within 0.5 of a gram, to around about 6.4 grams, 6.5 grams. So that is usually the race weight of our CO2 cartridges. Thank you for trying to catch me out there. And I'm sure you can do better than that, Lawrence. But Nelson Vale, got away with that one. Nelson Vale, I'm going to head to you for the track in race number 3.
So race number 3 with Black Shuck Racing now in lane 2, ready to go. Lights are about to come off.
There it goes. Can it go quicker in lane 2?
There we have it in the deceleration system.
And the answer will appear shortly, which is...
Nothing from our judges. And it's a
yes.
1.357.
Very much quicker. Well, Lawrence, we are seeing a pattern here. I mean, I know we said that the lane difference shouldn't really be a thing, and obviously we calibrate the track to make sure that all the equipment is equal on both sides, but Blackshock quite clearly finding favour in lane 2 there.
I wouldn't like to comment too much. I can't tell you exactly why that is, but perhaps in that just time it took for them to switch lanes, all of the parts have cooled off a bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Shrunk down a tiny bit, and that gap, everything's just a bit freer. Who knows?
I like your theory. I think we'll run with that one. I like this. Let's got some legs. Nelson, speaking of legs, I don't know how I'm going to link this bit to the next part of the show because it is a race. But use your mouth now to describe Blackshock Racing using its equivalent of legs to sprint down the F1 in Schools track for a fourth and final time.
Well, there's a lot of legs under the track holding all of the structure together.
Oh, actually, there's probably...
So Blackshock Racing
11.
in lane number 2 for the final race.
There
he goes into the deceleration system. No breakage apparently.
Can we beat that 1.357 time?
What will it be? It's a 1.380.
It's close, but because it's close, that is going to stand them in good stead. We know that the times across all the races are what contribute to your points total, so just having, as Lawrence said, just having one standout time isn't going to cut it. Having consistent times across all the races is what we're after.
Exactly.
No breakages, no DNFs.
Breakages.
So yeah, I mean, as Lawrence said, for a first time out team, especially one homeschooled with no access to school department resources, this is a significantly outstanding effort from this team. So really, really excited to see them progress into the professional class next year. Now, moving on, I think it's probably time to look at the development class leaderboard. Nelson, have you any suspicion about who might be top of the dev class leaderboard? Oh, it's Blackshock Racing. There they are, with that time of a 1.357. That is a remarkable time. We've seen dev class teams down there in the 1.67s, even 8s. So this is a really impressive time. Now, just to go with that, I know, Lawrence, you were looking at this team before and going, do you know what, there's something really interesting about this car. And I think you've got some input now, haven't you, about the engineering that's gone into it.
Okay, so looking at the front wing of the Blackshock Racing car, we can see there are actually 2 planes here, and they're both at slightly different angles. So I think this is another inspiration taken from Formula 1. You see, with Formula 1 having many, many elements to their wings, they're really a work of art. But we've seen this at some other regionals as well, and I've told you that what this does is this just energizes that air further, and whatever that wing is designed to do, whether it's designed to create lift, just raise that front end, or downforce, push it into the track, it just makes it even more efficient. But now, I'll explain to you why. So, first, we'll look at an example of a single element wing. So we see that we've got air approaching it at a constant speed. Now, the air that goes on the underside of that wing is accelerated to a higher speed than at the top of the plane. So this creates a pressure gradient. So this is when the pressure is different in the different parts of the wing. So we can see that this is high pressure, this is medium pressure, and as a result we create a little bit of downforce. But now we'll look at a multi-element wing. So this wing has exactly the same footprint, the same angle, and the leading and trailing edges are at the same place, but now we've created that with 2 elements. So we have the air going beneath, and as we can see, as it travels around the underside of that wing plane, it just accelerates and gets a bit faster. But then, air that's approaching the wing actually feeds through that gap and further accelerates it, making really high-speed air that comes up to the top. And now we've got a much bigger pressure gradient between that top side with the high pressure, low speed, and the bottom side with the really high speed but also low pressure. And this creates high downforce. And everything I've said can be reversed for lift. So you just flip that wing on its head and it behaves just the same way. Now, I know I've said a lot very quickly and it's all very complex, and this is where our virtual regional finals come into their own, because you can just scroll that bar and watch it again. Yes, so I hope that helps.
Wow.
Wow, Lawrence. Yeah, you've again educated us into the ways of not just aerodynamics, but aerodynamics related to F1 in schools cars, and then related back to F1 cars as well. And as you say, this footage is here to rewind and replay and re-watch again until that really sinks in. But what a cracking bit of analysis.
They can even rewind to see our blown away faces by just hearing all of the amazing stuff.
Two fools sat at a desk going, what did he just say? I mean, Lawrence, awesome bit of analysis. And again, just amazing to see that a team in their first year in the competition are trying something out like a multi-element wing, and really, I hope that, hopefully seeing that it's worked for them. So thank you again, my friend. That is a cracking bit of analysis. Lawrence, your job is not over yet. We're going to call on you yet again to fill in the intellectual void that myself and Nelson present here in the studio, to give us some of your thoughts on the next two cars on track, which of course are our first two professional class cars. So Vinesy, over to you again.
So instantly you'll notice a bit of a difference between these cars. On the left we've got this beautiful satin purple car, actually matching the colour of the purple Cosmos logo. That is looking great. And on the right hand side we'll notice the bare model block with the 3D printed front and rear wings and those beautiful shiny aluminium turned wheels. But if we look down at the weight, I think that tells the story. So Savitar have managed to keep it very, very close to the minimum 50-gram weight that every team aims for. But that perhaps it's that beautiful finish, but Cosmos are just that bit heavier, and that will definitely come in to play when the cars race. Both cars are similar width, similar height, even a similar wheelbase, and they're exactly the same length. So it'll really come down to their aerodynamics as well. We notice that Savitar have this massive front wing. It's like almost like a grate, or perhaps like a TIE fighter from Star Wars. Anyway, what I think it's meant to do is take all this jumbled up air, maybe a bit of turbulent air coming over from the other lane, from Cosmos, and it'll just straighten it all out, make it laminar. That's another word for straightening the air out. And that just means that when it goes further down the car, everything behaves as it's been tested in the wind tunnel.
Lawrence, can you just stay and kind of commentate us through day-to-day life? Because stuff makes more sense with him in the room, doesn't it? It really does. I love the analysis there, Lawrence. And yeah, two remarkably different cars in visual appearance. But as you say, you know, if you look at the stats, the specs, there's this massive similarities. And I guess, again, as you point out, it's going to come down to a question of whether or not the Cosmos car can overcome that weight difference with more efficient aerodynamics. But Savitar are clearly trying some pretty cool stuff there with this very unique Star Wars inspired wing, you reckon? Well, let's see. Nelson, I know you're a fan for old school films, and are you a Star Wars man?
Oh yes.
You are? I thought you were a Star Wars man. Yeah, you strike me as a Star Wars type. Nelson, you're going to talk us through the first race. So we're going to head out onto track and find out how Cosmos and Savitar Racing get on in race number 1.
Obi-Wan, please show me the race.
See.
Lane 1, Cosmos. Lane 2, Savitar Racing. Lights are gonna go off, and then they go. Oh, that was close, with a 1.194 for Savitar Racing and a 1.236 for Cosmos.
Nelson, correct you are in the reading of the scores. That is a superb little time there. Savitar Racing, we see breaking the beam first at the sector gate, breaking the finish line first with a cracking time. In Cosmos, not far behind there at all. 1.236 is a relatively good time. Can't see which way this is going to go. Nelson, I think we're hearing from the track guys that despite that sort of very flimsy looking front, well not flimsy, but very intricate looking front wing, there's no damage on track, and the guys are going to go again. So we start back at the track start for race number 2. Nelson, you can commentate on this one too.
Right. So in the same lane we have Cosmos in lane 1, Savitar Racing in lane 2.
Nelson, that's your evil twin in the background down there at the end of the track.
Probably. And there was something arriving after the cars finished. So that was Savitar Racing taking it with a 1.158, but with a caveat here that it may be a did not finish.
So Nelson, just explain to us. So we did see just on the end of the track cam there, the Savitar car crossed the line, but then it seemed that another part of the car decided to cross the line after the rest of the car.
It's very likely that it was a wheel, so with what probably happened was the wheel came off during racing. So the car completed the race and logged the time, but the wheel arrived to the finish after the car has logged the time. So what this means is that the car completed the race not being in one full finish set. So unfortunately, if that happened and the judges on the track will let us know, that would be a DNF, so it did not finish.
Yeah, Lawrence, go on. What have you got for us?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, while you think, oh, the car's made it to the finish on 3 wheels, maybe that's even more impressive. The reason that we can't let that go through is because actually that means that the car has completed the race under the weight that it was submitted, which there could most definitely be an advantage for. So that's why DNFs have to be discounted.
So you can't just create a car that sheds parts as it goes and saves weight and becomes a bullet by the end of the track, Lawrence. That isn't in the rules.
Don't think so. No. I think a few have tried, but I don't know if it was on purpose or by accident.
It's a good point, actually, and I know that one team that definitely tried it and ended up realising the error of their ways was indeed the previous world champions. Nelson, we both remember the scene at the London South Regional when the boys from Evolve, this was I think their third or fourth year in the competition now, they'd entered the regional finals going, right, this is our big year, this is the one that we've been waiting for. They'd had some trick 3D printed components made by a sponsor, a supplier, and I think they'd had them rushed through at the last minute, maybe a design tweak at the end, and they admitted to us afterwards that they hadn't had time to test this design, and it was essentially the whole sort of understructure of the wheel support system and the axles
and the wheels,
basically everything that held the wheels to the car, which of course is the model block material. And as the lights were counting up, George was there, as he did, laser focused on the lights, ready to press the trigger. It executed a brilliant reaction time there, and the car partially responded very well, albeit the wheels just went hoof and fell, and the car left the scene just with the fuselage literally in the front wing.
Can I just add that it sounded like a kaboof, but a kachum also?
Very much so. And as well. So the team hurriedly glued the car back together again. Of course, F1 in Schools often sponsored by Superglue. And that was the start of their story, wasn't it? The regional finals became regional champs, became national finalists, and of course runners-up there to Britannia Red, where they then went on and won the world finals. So just again,
the big story there is that they went and searched for alternative materials. They made the car super strong, and it outstanded all of the races in the world finals to the point of winning the knockout.
Yeah, and they did. And spot on, they did. Well, you can watch that on YouTube on F1 in Schools HQ if you wanted to review the action. Now, Nelson, we've been talking over this because obviously the guys out on track have been fixing the Savitar racing car, and I believe, hearing in my ear now, I think you can hear it as well, that the guys are ready. The car is back in position at the track start for race number 3. So, Nelson, over to you.
So, we have Savitar Racing in lane 1 and Cosmos in lane 2. All the lights are going to go off. There he goes.
Ooh, I think we have the same thing again, don't we?
We have the same problem there. So it's a 1.171 for Savitar and 1.30 weight, but you could see clearly that in lane number 1, something arrived after the car has finished, and that looked like one of those beautiful wheels.
I think it was, and I think what the track guys were saying before was that the wheels, although they're a push fit, the push fit itself is only a marginal thing on the axle. So really, if the guys had given a little bit more of an axle stub to push that wheel onto, there might have been a way of holding them to the car a bit more attention.
And the judges, in all their efforts to fix a car, they are always extra careful. One little more, a drop more of super glue in the wrong place, and the whole bearing would be locked.
Yeah.
So they absolutely tried to avoid that, but unfortunately, their best efforts were not sufficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd rather see the car, in full flight rather than glued to itself and wheels not rotating. So the track guys
wouldn't be safe to race.
Lawrence, I know you picked something up in that last race. What was that?
We've commented throughout on wear and tear on the cars in the racing. I was just thinking, I'd encourage teams really to look away from push fits, because as you push fit the wheel back on, as the track team have just put the wheel back on again, that fit does get gradually looser and looser as it does as the car races. So if you can get a system where either by glue or by some kind of retention system that might actually allow you to preserve and reuse bearings, a system alternative to just a push fit where the wheel could just fall off, that might be a sensible route to having more reliable finishes.
Yeah, really, really savvy advice there. And I think, coming from a world finalist who's seen his fair share of wheels fall off in the past, I guess, Lawrence, that's wise words. Nelson, I think, again, we're hearing in our ears that the track team have managed to reassemble the Savitar car and have done so to the best of their abilities and the capabilities of our adhesion systems. So I think we can head back out now to the track for race number 4.
I think we're all now gonna
Come on,
keep
Savitar.
our eyes in lane 1 to see. Cars are off.
Oh, Nelson, it looked good.
And that was good. So it's a 1.150 for Savitar. That's an actually excellent time.
It really is a good time.
1.254 for Team Cosmos.
And we're just waiting for the track guys to confirm whether there was any damage. The freeze frame there is not showing us what's going out on track, but I think the guys are saying that the Savitar car is in one piece, Nels. So it is a race time of a 1 point. It's disappeared now. I think it was a 1.150. Savitar get in there just at the end, setting a cracking time. Now, it must be said, Nelson, obviously the points scored for racing are attributed across all 4 races. So yes, Savitar have put in a great time there at the end, but just again going to prove Lawrence's advice there that consistency and build quality are really what you need to go for, and see these cars as more like mini endurance races than just point-to-point sprint vessels. Well, interesting stuff. Now, we have talked quite a lot about it, and Lawrence, you've already given us some of your kind of behind-the-scenes takes on the engineering work the teams have done. So, just to fill people in at home on exactly how engineering is assessed in F1 in schools, here's a quick explainer video.
Design and engineering sits at the heart of F1 in schools. Teams produce a portfolio worth 180 points. The competition judges are looking for evidence of design concepts, 3D modelling, computer-aided analysis or CAA, the use of CAD/CAM, computer-aided design and manufacture, the manufacturing and assembly of the car, the research and development journey a team has gone on, testing processes such as CFD or computational fluid dynamics, the design process evaluation and the presentation of the team's document. Portfolios are presented in A3 format, with development class producing a 5-page portfolio and professional class producing 10-page portfolios. Such high-quality work demands highly qualified judges. The engineering sector provides many of its finest minds to help judge F1 in schools, with a stellar cast of names from Formula 1, the automotive industry, aerospace industry and beyond.
Well, there we have it. A little bit of an inside track on the engineering judging and what goes into that. And Lawrence, you've been taking a closer look at what the teams have been producing for the design and engineering.
So, something that a lot of teams have mentioned in their design and engineering portfolios is the use of something called the Coanda effect. Now, we'll also see this in the last pairing of the day, so I'll explain to you what it is and how it works. So, the Coanda effect is the phenomenon which means air, and in fact any fluid, not just air, but liquid too, it sticks naturally to convex surfaces, so they're outward curves, and the air just follows it round and doesn't detach. So I've got a few diagrams which explain this. So here's a sample F1 in schools car with a concave front wing. So we've got the blue line representing our airflow, and this red section is our front wing. We see this is concave, and it just sends the air up and round and creates this little bit of turbulence where the air is just all muddled up and then creates drag further down the car. And we can see with this convex surface that this shape just helps lead the air round. It stays attached right to the end of the surface, and this just helps the rest of the car's aerodynamics behave as intended.
Wow, Lawrence, thank you so much for that bit of in-depth analysis again about the Coanda effect. I mean, it's something I guess you can apply to all the classes in F1 in schools, right from entry class, even primary class, I guess, with shaping the paper wings to a certain profile. So, yeah, really good little lesson there to learn for some of the teams. Lawrence, again, stay in position because we've now got our final 2 teams up on track and the last 2 teams in the pro class. So we're going to head back over now to the tech pad and to Mr. Lawrence Vines. Lawrence, what have you got for us on these 2 cars?
Well, we're straight to a real-life example of the Coanda effect. On the left-hand side with Apex Racing, we see that they've got these convex side pods which just have the air stick to them and bring them round in between the rear wheels, tucking them away and making sure that wake behind the car is very small, not creating a lot of drag behind it. We've got 2 different concepts here with the front wing between these cars, with Apex Racing choosing to put it above those front wheels. It's possibly they're thinking about the interaction between the front and the rear wing, just getting that air to feed the rear wing nicely. But with Infinite Aquarius, we've got a low wing and a very long 3D printed piece which extends out actually. I hope this team have tested this and verified that it's strong enough, because it does look a bit flimsy, but I've been deceived by the team's good engineering work before. So I'm very excited to see how these teams go. They're both definitely in contention with low weights. Let's go for our last race of the East.
Yeah, let's see it. I mean, like you say, Lawrence, both teams on stats at least look pretty similar. I mean, two very, very contrasting designs. Obviously, Apex going for, like you say, the raised front wing, and Infinite Aquarius for this almost like snow plough, so really low scoop, massively protruded from the front of the car. So really, really keen to see how these both get on. Nelson Vale, are you excited and all ready to go racing?
I'm ready.
Are you flying high on a wave of novelty chocolate at the moment?
Peppa the Pig chocolate, yes.
Princess Peppa.
Delicious.
Right, Nelson, harness that energy and talk us through the first race then between Apex Racing and Infinite Aquarius.
Race number 1, Apex Racing in lane 1, Infinite Aquarius in lane 2.
Beautiful cars, these.
Lights off. Oh, that was close.
Wow, that was close.
With a 1.136, that was Apex Racing, and a 1.168 in Infinite Aquarius.
Wow, amazing. So, I mean, Nelson, I think what we saw there is Infinite Aquarius actually breaking the split line first, and Apex Racing then crossing the line second. So, Lawrence, what's going on there? I mean, why have we got one car? I mean, first of all, we've got a genuine overtake in F1 in schools, but what was happening there in the different parts of the track to allow that overtake to happen?
So you may have noticed actually that this sector gate isn't placed, for example, exactly halfway down the track. It's actually approximately a quarter of the way down the track, and this is so it can give us a very interesting metric. So the CO2 that powers the car down the track doesn't actually last for the duration of the race. The sector gate is placed at the point at which that runs out approximately, which means up to there it's being forced forwards, accelerating to its top speed, but from the sector gate to the finish line, the car then coasts, gradually reducing in speed. And what the team's objective from there on is to make sure that that rolling resistance and that any aerodynamic drag is minimised so that they lose as least speed possible, so they can maximise that really big section of the track. That's about 3/4 of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The sector gate almost, literally a quarter of the way into the track, and we see that in the times. Obviously, the split gate is broken at about half a second usually, then cars normally take another second. So, 33% roughly, 66% after it. I mean, really interesting to know that, Lawrence. So the initial launch phase is where car stability, I guess, comes into the fore, and whether the car wheelies or nosedives off the immediate launch. But then afterwards, we're looking for, efficiency, low rolling resistance, low drag. Really interesting to see there. So we saw a great example of that there. Infinite Aquarius belting out of the blocks quickly, obviously quite a stable launch, but then Apex Racing just catching up in the cruise phase now. Fascinating stuff. Right, well, with that knowledge securely lodged in there for at least 10 seconds, I think we can head out back onto the track now. I believe there was a little breakage on Apex Racing, but the guys are saying that it has been fixed.
No, it may have been just a sticker flying off.
Oh, fantastic. Well, even better. That's okay then. So, well, thank goodness for that. Apex Racing, your car's in one piece, but perhaps one decal down. So, it lives to race another race. And speaking of races, let's race. And let's say race again. Race. Nelson race.
But even
race.
just with a sticker, the car's weight is always checked before each race.
Yeah.
So we have now Apex Racing in lane 1, Infinite Aquarius in lane 2, and we have Infinite Aquarius with a 1.136 against a 1.165 of Apex.
Wow, two really close times there. These guys are there. They're close. I mean, you start to think, Apex are going to stretch that lead because obviously such a quick time in the first race, but Infinite Aquarius really coming back there.
And that's really impressive for Infinite Aquarius. I mean, they're 3.5 grams heavier than Apex, and typically we do see this to be the factor that affects the cars most in F1 in schools. So that really means that Infinite Aquarius have optimised their aerodynamic design.
Yeah, I mean, it bodes well for them in the future, Lawrence, if they can get that weight down. And obviously they've sacrificed a paint finish, like we said in the start about, the finish of the car is, got lightweight in mind already, but if they can trim some of those grams off, then they're potentially looking at a really fast little race car there, aren't they? Of course, now is the time that the cars are being withdrawn from the track, and without explaining it in great detail, they're being swapped lanes. So lane 1 goes to lane 2 and vice versa. The track team are now replacing the CO2 canisters. And Nelson Vale, I think we are ready to head out there again for race number 3.
Race number 3. Infinite Aquarius, lane 1. Apex Racing, lane 2. All lights are going to go on. And now they're off. So we have Apex Racing with a 1.134 and a 1.165 for Infinite Aquarius.
Well, these two teams are going toe to toe.
Wow.
Look at this. So it's 2-1 heading into the last race, and really, you know, there, look, 0.03 of a second between the two finish times. I mean, actually, Apex Racing have absolutely smashed that first sector, less than 0.4 of a second to the split gate. I mean, that's remarkable, especially when you consider that in their first race they were actually second to the sector gate. They've made a marked improvement there in perhaps it is the lane 2 effect, Lawrence. I mean, Lawrence, give us a bit of your take on this. I mean, how could that, I'm going to call it a phenomenon, how could that phenomenon have happened?
Well, in the professional class, we have something that you're not allowed in the development or entry class, and they're bearings. So you have these inside your wheels, and these just make them move even more freely. But they are something that can affect the speed of the car across its races. So there are two things. One, you could get a bit of dust or debris collecting in there, and that just providing a little bit of resistance to the motion. And that could be what's happening when we see a car go a bit slower throughout the racing, perhaps. But also, when we see cars get faster, we know that these bearings often contain some kind of lubricant, which just keeps everything moving smoothly. And when the temperature increases, the lubricant decreases in viscosity, meaning there's less resistance to that motion, and the car might go even faster.
Wow, so there's a bit of a trade-off then, I guess, between the positioning of your bearings and how they can be affected or not affected by, I guess, debris is probably the biggest, the enemy of the bearing, but temperature, I suppose, is its friend. So really interesting to point out that, Lawrence, thank you. And yeah, one to keep an eye on. So maybe Apex just starting to get past that point of optimum performance where Infinite Aquarius are starting to reach their peak, Nelson. So, I mean, it's beautifully poised for the final race of the day. We sit currently at 2-1 in favour of Apex Racing. Let's see what happens in the final race of the East England Regional Finals. Race number 4. Nelson, over to you.
Right, final race. Infinite Aquarius, lane 1. Apex Racing, lane 2. And there we have it with Apex Racing taking it with a 1.145.
Wow. There it is, right at the end there. I wonder whether Infinite Aquarius had just had the best out of the car in race 3. I mean, it obviously peaked to a point and then it's just dropped off, where the Apex car's been pretty consistent there, hasn't it? You know, race to race.
So close, look at the split gate. So Infinite Aquarius got there first, but then Apex arrived first in the end.
Yeah, wow, what a tight pairing.
Well done.
What an awesome little head-to-head to finish on. Well, I mean, speaking of finishing, we're going to now have a look at the leaderboard for the professional class. So 4 teams there, and of course it was just, wow, Nelson, Apex Racing by 0.02 of a second over their absolutely brilliant rivals there, Infinite Aquarius.
I think you can hear the team on the other side of that screen.
Yeah. Just hear the celebrations down in the southeast now. Yeah, there they go. Wow, I mean, what a close pairing. Even Cosmos down there with 1.234. That is by no means a slouch. And I think all those teams can be proud of their efforts to come through to regional finals and to produce such consistent and entertaining cars, and quick cars too. Well, without any further ado, let's have a look at the final leaderboard and let's see where the teams stacked up. So there they are, and obviously in first place we saw there Apex Racing down there, and you'd expect really in class order. So the pro class teams with Black Shark Racing sat there on a 1.357, you know, comfortably ahead of Real Velocidad, and within striking distance, you have to say, of the pro class. I mean, that's quite remarkable really when you consider the weight difference of 10 grams between the Black Shark Racing car and obviously the pro regs, giving you the ability to get out to 50 grams. I mean, no team there at all has let themselves down. I think an absolutely fantastic effort. And Nelson, you mentioned it right back at the beginning of the show, that the lengths that these teams have gone to, and Lawrence has pointed out some great features of the work away from the cars that the teams have done. I think we just have to reflect again and say what an incredible job they've done in such difficult times.
Absolutely incredible, amazing cars. The work that you guys have submitted was really valued by all the judges. They really enjoyed giving the scores to all of your work. I mean, we really enjoyed receiving your cars and racing them. And look, with the troubled times that we've been having, it's absolutely fantastic that you guys have submitted everything to compete in our event. So thank you for that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Nelson. I think we did it at the beginning. We should probably do it again to sign out. That we owe these guys a massive round of applause. Well done again. Congratulations to all the team, from everyone, and the track guys that are out there joining in as well. giving you a clap through the door. Thoroughly well deserved. Nelson, of course, it's not all over yet, is it? There is an awards show still to come.
Exactly, and it's not just about the car, it's about the whole categories and all the points that when all the points are together, those are going to give us the winners.
Yeah, very much so. So make sure you tune in for that again. It's first of all, goodbye from Lawrence in the studio. Lawrence, thank you for being here and sharing your insight. Nelson, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing the desk with you. And folks, as we've said again, tune in for the awards ceremony. That is your big moment to find out who will be the national finalists and who's taking home our awards. But for now, thank you again. Well done, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye for now.
Bye, guys.